somebody was like, I really want to start D&D, but I've never been able to find a DM. And I was just like, hey, who here plays Dungeons and Dragons? Like everyone raised their hand. I was like, how many of you guys DM? And like 10 people had their hands raised and like maybe 5 were like, kind of, like I'm an occasional DM. And I was like, go find a DM for yourself, right? So the people that come to the hike usually wind up being a very similar demographic. And usually they're able to find friends or people that they have a lot in common with. And so it's usually my goal to try and introduce people to people I think that they'll get along with.
Looking for a player too? Welcome to the Date Like a Nerd podcast, where your gamer skills, dice rolls, and cosplay are your greatest dating assets. I'm Alex, and I'm a dating coach who helps shy, introverted nerds find their player two organically. I've interviewed hundreds of nerds and learned what really works. Here we skip the just be confident cliches and get real about how nerds actually meet their player two. Are you ready? Welcome to the podcast. I'm Alex, and I help shy, introverted nerds get over their fears and anxieties to find their player two. Today I bring you Sompi to talk about Hobbit Hike, where you can meet other nerds organically. Sompi is the founder of Health Bar Fitness, where she helps nerds, geeks, and gamers level up their health. Beyond online coaching, she organizes Hobbit Hike in Las Vegas and runs a vibrant Discord community with book clubs, movie nights, and craft sessions. Now, even though this podcast is about dating, Hobbit Hike is not made for you to go with the only goal of finding dates. The idea is for you to go make friends, and that by expanding your social network, you may get to meet your player too. So with that being said, Sompi, thank you so much for coming.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Just to get started, what's Hobbit Hike?
Yeah, so I started Hobbit Hike about 6 months ago, and we're a hiking group here in Las Vegas where we get together, dress up in Lord of the Rings or Renaissance Festival costumes and go hiking together. The thought concept came from, I just wanted to go hiking more, and I knew living in Las Vegas, it felt like a lot of nerd events out here were kind of focused around things like drinking, alcohol, going out and partying, and I wanted there to be more of a environment that nerds could go to in a similar age group to me, where it just felt more active and like, I guess, looking for people who are looking for like self-growth and other opportunities that had a little less to do with partying.
So you're saying that it's like, and I had no idea that in Vegas nerds got together to like party and drink. Like to
we
me,
have a really vibrant nerd city here in Vegas, I would say. We have a lot of nerd bars out here, like a ton of them. We have a lot of our nerd bars have like kind of like a provocative edge to them sometimes. And I think for a more introverted type of nerd, it could be like a lot to go to somewhere with like a hentai lounge. Like that's a lot for some people. So I wanted there to be kind of like a wholesome environment for that. I don't really drink myself, and so I thought it would be really cool to find other nerds like that may want to hang out in daytime hours.
So what kind of people joins Hobbit Hike?
Well, it's been all over. So when I first started Hobbit Hike, our initial 10 people were like people I knew from the cosplay scene, right? I've been in the cosplay scene here in Vegas for like ages. So I was basically able to get a group of friends together. But eventually I was able to start running ads, and I ran the ads for everyone. But we have people who are now asking if they could bring their families. We have people as old as people in like their late 50s who are starting to come to things. Our initial group was basically kind of people my age, between like 25 to 45, who are, into Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. But we have definitely grown and expanded since then. So it's a pretty sizable range of people. And at this point, we've gone from like 10 people coming to hikes to we have about 70 people signed up for our next hike.
That's huge.
It's grown really fast.
I mean, like for an event for introverts, that's really big.
Yeah, and it's grown to the point where it's like harder for me to tell introverts to come, because I'm like, I never expected it to get this big. I was kind of like, let's find something, we could go out into the wilderness. No one has to talk to each other. Like we're hiking, we have an activity to do. But it's definitely grown past that point now.
So are most people like fit? Like, are they into sports or something?
Most people aren't into sports. I would say we have like, most people that come to the hike, I would say about 20% are active hikers. Maybe 20% used to hike, and this is their first hike in years. And a really large amount of people that come to my event haven't hiked before, or again, it's been like a very, very long time. I wouldn't call most of the people who come to my event advanced hikers by any means. And when I was first coming up with the event, I was trying to decide, I'm like an avid hiker, so a hard hike for me is whatever. But even some of our easier hikes I found were difficult for a lot of people coming to my hike. So I've scaled back a lot to even easier hikes, talking to people who are attending the events. I'm like, what are you here for? Are you here for like the hike? Are you here to make friends? And overwhelmingly, most people told me like, we kind of just want to talk to people, meet new friends, and like, we want to like whimsy max, as we've been saying. Like, we want to hang out in our costumes, twirl around, wave our swords. Like, we want it to be whimsical. And I was like, cool, if that's what you guys want, we're going to make sure that these hikes are like pretty easy. There's a lot to look at, cool things to take photos of in your cosplay, and a lot of breaks. So it's not an extreme hike at all. People ask for it, but I'm like, that's just not who this audience is. Maybe in the future, as we expand, we'll have like a secondary harder hike there. But for now, it is, for the most part, we try and make it as all levels as we can. Of course, we can't accommodate for every single person's fitness level, but we're typically choosing the easy status on all trails.
So it's basically like a tour for cosplayers to take photos?
Yeah, so like I would say about 50% of people dress up. And I would say it's like, you know, when you go to Renaissance Festival, it's not like intense how much you have to cosplay, right? You could just wear like a fancy shirt and call it a day. So we have some people who go all out in their costumes, and some people are kind of just wearing a fun shirt. So it's about 50-50 how many people dress up and how many people are kind of just there to hang out in their regular clothes. There's no pressure to cosplay, but it's like we're out in the forest or we're out in the woods and stuff. It's like a really cool opportunity to get great photos if you wanted to.
Right. That sounds awesome. So at the beginning, before we recorded, you told me, because I have experience going on hikes, right?
Yeah.
Like group hikes. And I was like, well, I'm sure it's something similar. You're like, no, it's nothing
really.
like
Well,
it.
when I go on hikes, like we're trying to get to a destination. Usually we're trying to get there within a certain amount of speed, because I think our last hike, we had like 30-ish people or so. There's just a lot of breaks, a lot of chit chat time. At one point, everyone started breaking out into Epic the Musical. Like, I wouldn't call it your average hike just by the nature of people aren't necessarily there just to like get the hike done. It's a lot of hanging out. And so that's why it's funny. It's like, oh, that trail only takes an hour, Sompi. And I'm like, this is going to take us about 3 hours, between the combination of a lot of us aren't hikers by nature and the amount of time that people are going to want to just like kind of hang out. Sometimes people will be like, that's a really like nice rock. And then we're like, okay, let's go hang out by that rock for like 30 minutes, I guess. So it is a hike. Yes, we are getting out in nature, but it's not extreme by any means.
So basically you're touching grass.
We're touching grass. That's what I literally say. I'm like, I'm trying to help nerds touch grass.
That sounds about right. Yeah. How do you manage such large groups?
So I have a few people within my group that I trust who help with my business, so that we kind of like have people at each section. So one of my community managers, Carlos, helps stay towards the back with people who are slower. We have some people, like one of my friends, Steven, he stays towards the front with the more advanced hikers, and I usually float back and forth in between. And luckily, we kind of have not assigned extroverts, but there are people that I know who understand like my brand and my mission, that like really go out of their way to try and introduce themselves to people, to make sure that we can introduce people to other people so that no one feels really left out during the hike. So it's like a 50% I'm trying to make sure that people are talking and enjoying themselves, and 50% I'm trying to make sure everybody's safe and nobody's falling too far behind.
I love the concept of assigned extrovert.
Yeah, it's really funny. One of the guys in our group, his name's Steven, and he is a self-proclaimed introvert, but he just like kind of forces himself to stay busy. He's really great at talking to people, but he's definitely an introvert by trade. But he does such an amazing job trying to make sure that he can help people feel included. And, you know, one of the things that I do as someone who is very extroverted, I mean, anytime somebody new comes to the hike, the very first thing they'll ask them is just like, what do you like to geek out on? And typically they're able to tell me 2 or 3 things. And more often than not, I'm able to find someone else in the group that likes the same thing. And I'll usually try and assign them like 1 or 2 buddies to start off talking with. We have enough like general nerds like me who like a lot of different things that we can talk to anyone. But if they say something particularly niche, I'm able to usually find someone as well. And so, of course, most people that come to the hikes love Lord of the Rings. We had we attempt to do the May the 4th one. So typically a lot of people like Star Wars. And so usually we have pretty good success introducing people. I remember it was last hike, somebody was like, I really want to start D&D, but I've never been able to find a DM. And I was just like, I have a feeling you'll be able to find a DM. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, hey, who here plays Dungeons and Dragons? Like everyone raised their hand. I was like, how many of you guys DM? And like 10 people had their hands raised and like maybe 5 were like, kind of, like I'm an occasional DM. And I was like, go find a DM for yourself, right? So the people that come to the hike usually wind up being a very similar demographic. And usually they're able to find friends or people that they have a lot in common with. And so it's usually my goal to try and introduce people to people I think that they'll get along with.
That's amazing. I was expecting the next question to be like, who's got dice here? Here!
Yeah, basically. The people come with dice or people are wearing a certain thing. It's like, and typically like, so before the hikes, we'll meet up in a parking lot first. And as people are kind of rolling in, I'm doing my best job of asking like, where they're from, how long they've lived in Las Vegas, because most people who come to Vegas are from somewhere else initially. And I'm just like keeping that Rolodex of all the things I know about them so I can try and help them make a quick friend. That way, kind of like we were talking about before the call, that way we're not spending 2 to 3 hours in awkwardness, right? So do my best to try and situate people together. And typically people who've been in the hike longer are very willing to help make people feel comfortable as well.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that you just brought up, because once you go on a hike, unless you know the trail, you're stuck with the people that you are. And that has its pros and its cons, right? I mean, maybe it has more cons than pros, actually, now that I think about it.
It's hard.
Yeah, and it's like, if I'm not comfortable, if I feel awkward, like I've experienced many times where one partner brings their partner to a hike and like the one who's being brought, it's not the vibe. Like I've seen some shoes that you're like, you really should not have worn that.
Oh yeah, when someone's unprepared.
Yeah. So, and they're like, I hate this. This is awful. Like, why did you bring me to this? And you're stuck, right? Yeah. And if you don't know anybody and you feel a bit uncomfortable, you're like, oh, I'm stuck here. But it sounds like in your case, like since it's such a big group, and you pretty much know most people, you can sort of pinpoint who to put together.
So at this point, as the group was slowly growing, we started off with 10 people. I knew them pretty well. We'd have like 1 or 2 new people each hike, and I got to know them very well. Now we're at the point where we're having 10, 20, 30 new people come each time. But I'm just at the point where I have been a part of this just general Vegas nerd community for so long that I'm usually able to figure out someone I think that they'll get along with. And for some people who are much quieter, I kind of take it upon myself to be the yapper. So like, and that's okay. And like, if I can suss out that someone is just not going to be comfortable talking a lot, I'll usually see if I can stick near them to make sure and do some checks to see how they're feeling. That's just kind of how I am with the way that I run my groups. I know not every hiking group is going to be that way. And as far as like if someone wears the wrong shoes or this and that, that's why I kind of go out of my way to pick easier hikes. So that's not too big of a problem. We have done harder hikes before, and it was a disaster at times because people wore the wrong shoes. I sent out a very long email when you confirm and a very long email the day before with all the stuff I want you to bring. Of course, most people still don't bring that. But that's why we're picking easier hikes now as it's gotten bigger. And if we decide to start doing more advanced hikes in the future, it's like we're just going to have to be more strict. But honestly, like more advanced hikes and costumes might not be safe anyways. So I think with the nature of wearing the costume, like somebody came with like a full-on like axe the other time, like, and it was functional. So I was like, that would be very dangerous if this was a more difficult hike. So
that's awesome. You mentioned like someone who may not want to be so chatty. Like one thing that I like about hikes, if you're an introvert, is
you don't have to.
You don't have to. You can just look at this. Yeah, you can just like focus on walking and look at the scenery and just enjoy the nature.
Mm-hmm. It's really nice. And that's why I usually always try and check out someone's vibes, right? If it doesn't look like they want to engage, then I'll give them some space and just keep checking in on them periodically to make sure they're doing okay. And that's why now that the group has grown enough, I'm able to take other people who are my community managers to be like, hey, can you just check on them? Like, that's your buddy. Just like check on them periodically to make sure that they're having a good time. And that's how I like to try and manage my hikes personally, is just make sure that anyone who's new feels welcomed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have seen, I mean, in my experience, when you go hiking, like you were saying, like you have one person in the front, one in the middle, one in the back, depending on the size, you might have more people in the middle. I have never seen anyone being like, okay, you're in charge of making sure that those people are having a good time, which I think is a big difference with most groups that I've heard of.
Yeah, I think especially when the goal of a hike for most big groups, of course, is like the hike itself and like being active and this and that. Really, like my mission with these hikes is for people to make friends and is to build community more than anything. And that is why like making sure that people are having a good time is such a part of it. And that's why, again, like people come in at different exercise levels. So that's why we're taking lots of breaks. We're taking lots of rest for people to talk, to chat. I do my best to have kind of icebreaker type questions whenever I can tell that things are really quiet. We usually meet in a parking lot and then drive over to the trail, because if we had 70 cars show up, that would be a nightmare, right? So we can manage 8 cars getting a parking spot, probably not 70. And typically on those car rides, I'll try and make sure that the vibes of each car, that people might get along. And I think having the drive over to the trail as well kind of helps people get to know each other in a smaller environment before getting thrown into like this giant section, right? Another thing that I've tried to make, last hike we had someone who was like, I hope somebody speaks Spanish here, because my English isn't very good. So like the first thing I did was make sure to help him find all of our Spanish speakers. And so we wound up having a bunch of people who did speak Spanish. So there was like 4 or 5 of them who were able to hang out towards the back of the trail and just hang out in Spanish the entire time. So definitely try and see what people are looking for and who we can introduce into the group. Because again, once you have more than 20 people, like that is so much potential to like make great connections.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, in this case, it makes sense if it's like a language barrier, but usually you don't want to be stuck with one group, right? Especially like in a hike, because like we're saying, like you're basically stuck with the group until the hike ends. And so one thing that I mentioned that I wanted to tell about is, how do you tell if someone wants to interact with you? Yeah. Right? Because things can get awkward. And I have experienced people who are like both romantically and non-romantically, right? Like someone who's like, oh, I'm super excited about meeting this person, talking to this person, blah, blah, blah. And they stick with them throughout the whole trail, then maybe the person is not that interested, right? I know that some of my audience, they don't want to be creeps. They don't want to offend or bother anyone. So how can they tell if someone like wants to interact, right? And when to sort of give space?
I think it's definitely a body language thing. If someone's closed off, if someone is turning around away from you, not really acknowledging you. Luckily, I feel like we have not had that type of energy at our hikes. But those are typically the things that I look out for. If you're getting really short answers from someone, they might not want to engage and talk with you. I think when going to something new like this, where you don't know people, one of your safest bets is to try and talk to whoever is organizing the event, or anyone who's on like community organizing it, because they might put you in the direction of people who may be more chatty, or someone who may help you kind of break that barrier. Because some people do get really shy as well and may not be comfortable talking to people outside their immediate circle. So if you're noticing they're really closed off like that, it's okay to go try and find the community organizer to be like, hey, do you know anyone here who might, like I said, that one person who was like, do you know anyone here who speaks Spanish, right? And I was able to direct them that way.
Yeah, something that I use and that I think works great is just like chatting with someone for a while, then maybe going my own way. And by going I mean like talking to other people and then seeing like, do they come back to me? Yeah. Do they come and talk to me again? Right. And if they don't, then I might try again and just start a conversation. If they don't, if they're just, it often happens, at least in my experience, that 2 people just click.
Yeah. Lots of times.
And they spend the whole hike, just the 2 of them or 3 of them just chatting. And sometimes you can't really join because they have their own thing going on, and sure, that's fine. I can imagine having so many people supporting you. This would be easy, but like how do you manage those types of situations? If someone is like, I'm uncomfortable, what do I do? I'm talking about consent, about like harassment.
So if anyone's feeling uncomfortable, I would definitely talk to the party that's making them uncomfortable. And, if somebody comes to me uncomfortable, I would want to know like what it is that that person needs to feel safe, right? Whether that is the person leave this hike, whether it's just that person stays at the back of the group, because it's going to be different depending on the levels. And luckily, I'm like a 5'2" girl. There's not that much I can do. But like I said, my community manager, he is 6'3", covered in tattoos, right? I'll probably have Carlos talk to any guys who is making a woman feel uncomfortable. And if it's for whatever reason a woman, I would probably talk to her, right? But there is that protocol in place if someone's feeling uncomfortable. I'm not going to necessarily just kick them off the trail, right? If that's not what the person who's feeling uncomfortable wants, I need to see what they need to feel safe. And in a lot of cases, it's just like, I need some distance is what I would imagine.
Well, it's also hard to kick someone off a trail if they don't know the trail.
There's always the option of someone like Carlos taking them one-on-one back, right? I would trust, because there have been times where people have just like not been able to finish a hike. And so I've usually had him helping them get back on their way. I wouldn't want to abandon someone in the wilderness.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
We would probably have, this would be the protocol, would be to have one of our male members that we trust. So probably, like I said, Stephen and Carlos, probably escort them and make sure that they get back safely, and probably have like a debrief chat about what happens and kind of see like where things went wrong. That way they can also have someone to talk it over with and see whether it was, where they were coming from in that, and make it something constructive, hopefully, for the future.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and that's what I wanted to ask, because like we're saying, like you're kind of stuck, but if you have, it makes sense. Like someone can walk them back. Great. That's amazing.
Somebody can walk them back. And in that case, like, I feel like if it were me having to talk to someone who harassed a woman, like I wouldn't be the best person for that. I'd probably feel a little activated, either a little triggered, but being able to have someone who can talk from like an angle of like non-toxic masculinity to be like, yo, bro, that wasn't cool. Like, why'd you do that? Right. I think they could handle that situation a little bit better than I could have, especially if it takes like an hour to walk back.
Yeah. Look, like I always want to think the best of people, and I want to think that it's not on purpose. Like, it may come from a place of like not realizing, not knowing, not whatever it is, right? And I often say, like, I mean, I had, last year, I was at an event, people from all over the world, and we got a message on WhatsApp saying that some of the men were making some of the women uncomfortable. And I was at a table with some friends, and I was like, well, what were they doing? Because it could be me, it could be a friend. If we don't know what it is, we don't know. Like, we have many different cultures here, right? As an example, I was like, there was someone from Ukraine. I was like, are you okay with physical touch? And she's like, well, if it's friendly. Okay, what's friendly? I'm like, touch on the shoulder, that's fine. Upper arm, that's fine. I'm like, knee, no. Okay. And I looked at a Mexican friend of mine. I'm like, what do you think? I just put my hand on her knee. She's like, it's fine. Like, so I want to think that in most cases, people don't realize that there's something wrong, and that by just talking about it, then it's clear and it's fine.
Yeah. I think with these events and things, I definitely err on the side of caution. I'm someone who doesn't even like want people hugging me if I don't know them, right? So I err on the side of asking before any physical touch and stuff like that. I can't really think of many situations where it would be appropriate to need or want to touch someone on a hike either, right? It's not like we're dancing or anything like that. So.
That's just an example. I'm just saying, like,
but I know what you mean. So especially or if like people are posing for photos and stuff like that, I could see someone maybe doing something that would make someone uncomfortable. So I just always try to curate the environment where someone would feel comfortable coming to me as the organizer to say like something is happening, and for us to try and manage that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, that's great. So how often is Hobbit Hike?
We're doing them once a month right now.
Once a month. Okay. And in between, like, think you have a Discord? Like, how do people stay in touch with the community?
Yeah. So we have a locals channel. So a lot of our local people will get together on the locals channel. We recently went to like the Moshe Eisley Star Wars event where it was like an emo night that was Star Wars themed. I know we'll have people get together. I have a channel on my Discord for locals that's like, let's get lunch. We had a bunch of people go get tacos the other day. So there are definitely people who are local using my Discord to like meet up and hang out after. And it typically winds up open invite and anyone who's come to things can go. But in addition to the once a month Hobbit hike, I run movie nights once a month. I run a craft night once a month. And then we have a monthly book club as well. So there's a lot of ways to still engage with Health Bar Fitness if you don't live in Vegas or if you just want to see more people online in between. I find that once a month winds up being a pretty good amount of time for a lot of our audience and people to interact and touch grass. I want to start doing it twice a month, but that might be a lot.
Well, I mean, with 70 people, maybe you might be able to.
Yeah.
But so those events that you said, like the movie nights and the crafts, that's all online.
That's all online on Discord. Yeah.
Okay. That's perfect. Yeah. Cause like for some people, they're like, oh, like I don't have enough time. And I'm like, well, just join an event that happens every once a month and then just join the group chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Once a month, you can come to these and then everyone just hangs out online. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of people play video games and stuff together. Everyone in the community just kind of does their own thing, but it's a great way to meet people initially and then chat with them after. And it makes me really happy to see people organizing lunches and other things on their own, independent of me as well. So it really just goes to show that the people who are showing up to this event tend to be kind of like-minded and into the same stuff.
Right. You mentioned those who are locals. Do you have people who are not locals?
Yeah, we have people all over the world. So my Health Bar Fitness, I have clients all over the place. I have people in the UK. I have people in Canada. I have people in like just everywhere. So we have events and people from all over the place. And that's why we have a specific section for locals as well.
Right. And joining Hobbit Hike, you also get people who are not from Vegas or not living in Vegas?
It's not advertised to them, but they're welcome to join us. I think it'd be hard to kind of find it if you weren't local. If you're part of my Health Bar Fitness community, though, we do have people who plan on flying out if they're in Vegas to join us as well. So I plan on having an anniversary event, and I think there are some people in our community who plan on flying out for it.
That sounds really cool. That sounds amazing. Is there anything else you want to share about Hobbit Hike?
Anything else to share about Hobbit Hike? Yeah, just see what's in your local community and what events are out there. And if there aren't any that you see that are interesting, like start it yourself. Like if you build it, they will come. I started Hobbit Hike 6 months ago and we have 70 people signing up for events right now. I have like 400 people in my Discord now, starting from like barely anything. So there is a need for this stuff. And if you have an idea, like seriously, just build it. People like want community and are like craving community in the nerd spaces. And if you like have that pure vision and you want that, build it.
That sounds great. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Sompi Harmetz on Instagram and on YouTube.
Fantastic. Sompi, thank you so much for coming. This has been great. And I hope people either think about joining Hobbit Hike if you want to go for at least once a month to Vegas, or if you live there. And otherwise, just create your own, because like this sounds like a great idea. Sompi, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Looking for a player too? I've interviewed hundreds of nerds and learned what really works. Download your data-backed guide with real stories, actionable tips, and a step-by-step system for finding love the nerd way at daylikeanerd.com/reality.